everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and it's time to talk about a pretty stacked edition of AEW Dynamite. But did it live up to the hype? We had various different big things going on. Chris Jericho's thank you celebration, his title match against Scorpio Sky, MJF versus Hangman Page for the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and various other segments as well. But how good were these segments? There's only one way to find out, and that's by assigning each of those segments a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. We begin the show with pretty much the exact person that should kick off every wrestling show in 2019 in the middle of the ring. That's right, Soul Train Jones, aka Virgil, is kicking off the show in Chicago, Illinois. There's various things in and around the ring. There's like people in giant costumes, there's a marching band on the ramp, there's a giant gift in the ring, a giant present. There's various things for Jericho's thank you celebration. Virgil, Soul Train, introduces him and just decides to shout his lines as loudly as possible and introduces Le Champion, Chris Jericho. That's what he says, Chris Jericho. Oh, it kind of worked because it's Virgil. What do you expect? The marching band plays Jericho to the ring. He tells everyone to shut up, but he's not in a totally bad mood. He's quite generous, actually. He says, look into your seats, and some of you will find a coupon for 50 cents off the new Jericho Le Champion t-shirts. What a nice man. He's basically like Oprah Winfrey. Jericho also plugs the official Little Bit of the Bubbly, which he says is made from the greatest grapes ever in the world today, harvested from the mountains of Nepal. And then he plugs the website littlebitofthebubbly.com, and I think if Adam Piccioni will put it up on the screen, that's a screenshot from the official Little Bit of the Bubbly website. It's a real thing. There you go. You can buy a Little Bit of the Bubbly for about, I think it was about $40 for 2 bottles. I don't know if that's a good deal or not. Don't know how good it is. Jericho brings out the members of the inner circle, and like the 3 wise men in the nativity story, they've each got a gift for him. Sammy Guevara's got a cardboard cutout of the pair hugging, himself and Jericho. Santana and Ortiz have like a gift basket made up of various things. There's some flip-flops, there's a Boricua headband, they say that Jericho's now an official Boricua. There's some vapor rub as well, because it's flu season, that's pretty handy. And the best gift of all, a little bit of the 40, just a bottle in a paper bag that they give to Jericho. That gets a big pop from the crowd, to be fair. This was a funny segment, and I enjoyed a lot of the jokes. And then Jake Hager came along from like the wings, from like the side of the stage, with a goat, because Jericho's the greatest of all time, called Chris Jericho. The goat did not want to be on camera. Luckily, they don't make it go down to the ringside, because it looks pretty scared, but I think they just sort of keep it in the side of the stage area, and then hopefully just take it to the back, where it has a nice rest and some food. But the biggest gift of all is revealed. The big box in the ring is lifted up, and inside is Chris Jericho's real-life dad, former NHL player for many teams, but including the New York Rangers, Ted Irvine, who says, "Hello, New York," and everyone boos him because they're in Chicago. And then Jericho's like, "No, Dad, we're in Chicago," and his dad's like, "Home of the Blackhawks? They're wimps." And it's a nice little take on the classic heel trope of getting heat on the hometown sports team. I thought it was pretty effective. Even though his dad's not the most natural promo in the world, he still did a pretty good job considering. Jericho then gets Justin Roberts to read a very sincere thank you message from Warner Media, TNT, and the entire AEW family. Justin reads it, but then Jericho takes issue with his tone, and he and the inner circle all beat down Justin Roberts, and the crowd again boo that. Not just because it's Justin Roberts and he seems like a nice man, but because he's also from Chicago, Illinois. Roberts is saved by SCU because Scorpio Sky has a title match with Jericho later on tonight. The 3 members of SCU are disguised as members of the marching band. They get in the ring, they start beating people down. The inner circle bail, leaving poor Soul Train Jones alone in the ring with them. And then Kazarian puts him in the $1 Million Dream, which I thought was an excellent touch, to be fair. This gets an A grade. It was stupidly over the top, but it was hilarious. Jericho is the best at these sort of segments. We remember it, of course, in WWE with the Festival of Friendship. This certainly carried echoes of that, and I just thought it was a really entertaining start to the show. I think it may be the first time they've opened the show with a big promo segment like this, but it was a good excuse to do so. Jericho's kind of the master of these, and even though it wasn't the smoothest, with Virgil botching a couple of his lines and Jericho's dad not being the most comfortable on the mic, it still worked. It was a car crash, but in the best way, so it gets an A grade for effort, if not quite for smoothness. Next up, the Best Friends, accompanied by Orange Cassidy, taking on Pentagon and Phoenix, the Lucha Bros. The Lucha Bros attack the Best Friends during their entrance. They all have a bit of a brawl, and the match is on. Orange Cassidy helps turn the tied. It's kind of before the bell's even rung, really, so he's allowed to get involved. Jumping off the top rope to the outside, dressed as a turkey, because it's Thanksgiving. Oh, by the way, happy Thanksgiving to all of our American viewers. I think it's Thanksgiving today, yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. Have some turkey in that. Or vegetarian substitute if you're a vegetarian. On commentary for most of the show, it's just Excalibur and JR because Tony Schiavone's unavailable. So Excalibur introduces Marco Martinez from the All Elite Fleet courtesy of State Farm. I don't know what any of those words mean, and they don't really make it clear. It all breaks down towards the end, leaving one member of each team alone in the ring with each other. JR calls this as Phoenix and Taven are left alone in the ring, not Phoenix and Trent. And the fact that JR even knows who Matt Taven is astounding to me. I mean, fair play in one way, but at the same time, it's not brilliant, is it? This isn't Ring of Honor, Jim. This is All Elite Wrestling. Phoenix goes for the Destroyer, but Trent catches him and hits him with the Dude Buster, or whatever its new name is in AEW. It's the Dude Buster. He sits down on Phoenix, gets the 3 count, and that's the second time that Trent has pinned a member of the Lucha Bros in the past week. Unfortunately, I can only really give this a B- grade. The action was fine, if not exactly spectacular, but other things just didn't really click in this match. Commentary were making a few mistakes, they didn't really click with each other, and also, as well, I didn't really find Orange Cassidy's distraction spots as entertaining as usual. I haven't even mentioned them yet. Orange Cassidy distracted the Lucha Bros towards the end of the match by flapping his arms like a turkey. But yeah, I didn't find it that entertaining. Next up, women's tag team action. Bea Priestley and Emmie Sakura teaming up to take on HIKARU Shida, the #1 contender, and KRIS Statlander. Statlander is making her AEW Dynamite debut, although she has already appeared on Dark before, and I was really impressed with her in this match. I thought she was the bright spot of the match. She's big, powerful, but also really quick and nimble as well. And by the sounds of it, JR was pretty impressed on commentary as well. He really managed to help get her over as a threat. I think she could potentially be a future star of the AEW women's division. The action spills to the outside where HIKARU Shida gets a chair and sets it up because she likes to do that running launch pad knee off the chair. But as she's running towards the chair, Emmie Sakura just sits in the chair and blocks her path. And I was like, just move her out of the way. And then Shida just boots her out of the chair. And I was like, good. Yeah, you should have done that. That's good. Good psychology. That's what people mean when they talk about ring psychology in wrestling, is someone sitting on a chair and the other person booting them out of it. That's right. Back in the ring, Emmie Sakura grabs a quite unwilling referee and dances with him, and then holds his arm out, and he unwittingly becomes like a clothesline for HIKARU Shida. I'm starting to get Emmie Sakura now. I'm starting to get that she's outwardly a babyface, but inside she's a heel, and she likes to play little tricks and deceive people. I'm kind of starting to get it, you know, guys. Later on, it is one of these little tricks from Emmie Sakura that turns the tide in the favor of the heels, with KRIS Statlander running the ropes, but Emmie's on the outside with her mic stand. She loves Freddie Mercury, remember, and hits her in the spine, gets in the ring, and rolls her up for 3, while Bea Priestley is taking care of HIKARU Shida on the other side of the ring. I'm glad that Shida didn't take the pinfall, but the heels pick up the victory. This again gets a B-. It was a little bit messy here and there, and the opening half of it was almost like a comedy match, really. I think the focus could really have been on Statlander as a future star of the division, potentially. She seems to have all of the tools, but in the end, it was a win for the heels. I mean, you could even have had HIKARU Shida pick up the victory as the #1 contender, but maybe this will help put more of a spotlight on Emmie Sakura and Bea Priestley. But then Emmie's just had that title match against Riho. Maybe it was so that Bea gets a win. I don't quite understand. Next up, it's the return to action of Cody, still hurting from that big loss to Chris Jericho at Full Gear. He comes out and he's taking on Matt KNICKS, who must be a bit of a local star on the independent scene in Illinois, because he gets a pretty hefty pop from the crowd, it has to be said. This isn't a very long match at all, really. I mean, Matt KNICKS tries to go for Cody's injured ribs, but Cody turns the tide with a springboard cutter off the ropes and then locking in a figure 4 for the submission victory. But this is more about the post-match than the match itself. Cody gets on the mic and calls out MJF, who of course betrayed him recently, but instead the canvas opens up and out from it comes the Blade, and he attacks Cody, and he's followed by the Butcher, and he attacks Cody as well. Now, at the time, I didn't know who these guys were. Apparently they're pretty big names in Beyond Wrestling, but I've actually heard of one of them. It's Braxton Sutter, or Pepper Parks, who is Ali's real life husband. And then here comes Ali, the bunny. She's dressed like a bunny. They're all wearing gothic kind of black clothing. They look really brutal, and they beat down Cody to like near total silence from the crowd. In fact, they do chant one thing, which is, "Who are you? Who are you?" So I know who the Blade is. That's Braxton Sutter, formerly of Impact Wrestling. Sam Driver has informed me that the Butcher is actually the guitarist from the band Every Time I Die. He's a big lad. He looks pretty big and pretty hench as well. And I think he was wearing a monocle for some reason. They had a distinctive look, I'll give them that. I wanted to enjoy this debut, I really did, but unfortunately it's another segment that I can only give a B- to. The beatdown was good, like the attack was quite vicious enough, but it was the reaction to it from the crowd. It reminded me of the Dark Order's debut at Double or Nothing. Everyone was just a bit like, who are these guys? And on commentary, that didn't help either, because Excalibur's going crazy, going, it's the Blade, it's the Bunny, it's the Butcher, it's the Blade and the Butcher and the Blade, and JR's just there going, who? And I thought, if you could give us some more information about them, maybe a bit of their background, maybe who they are, maybe notify everyone that Ali is with, I don't know if in kayfabe she's with the Blade, but maybe you could say like, Ali's in a dark new direction now. She seemed normal when we signed her, but she's gone all dark. There was none of that really, there was no time for that nuance. It was just Excalibur going, it's these three guys, and JR going, what, mate? And it didn't quite work for me. But I want to give it a chance going forwards, you know? Maybe they'll turn out to be a really effective tag team once they get a chance to get their characters over a bit more to an unfamiliar audience. Next up, Kenny Omega versus Pac, a big rematch in AEW, and of course, this was probably, yeah, it was the best match of the night. Kenny Omega was busting out all of his impressive spots, Snapdragon suplexes, big V-trigger running knees. Pac was doing like, he did a beautiful moonsault to the outside, and an outrageous Falcon Arrow from the top rope on Kenny Omega, showing incredible strength and technique, like all the way down to the canvas. They got a decent amount of time, over 10 minutes, but maybe not as long as a match of this caliber really deserved. I don't know. I mean, it was a big time rematch, but the finishing sequence was good, with Kenny Omega avoiding the Black Arrow, then Pac slipping out of the One-Winged Angel, but Omega catching Pac in a quite unique roll-up and getting the 3 count. This gets an A-, it was the best match on the show. I'm worried that it's a little bit 50-50 booking, with Pac getting the winner all out, and then Omega getting his win back on Dynamite, but we'll see what happens going forwards. Maybe they're building Kenny up as a big contender in the singles division, but Pac should be like built up as well. Maybe they're trying to build both of them up, and this is the only way they could do it. But anyway, good match, good stuff in the ring from both men. Of course it was going to be, they're two of the best in the world. Next up, MJF versus Hangman Page for the Dynamite Diamond Ring, which we are told is worth about $45,000 roonies. Ooh. The story of this match is Hangman really trying to tear into MJF, but Wardlow getting involved behind the referee's back at any opportunity, helping to turn the tide in the favour of MJF. At one point even, MJF takes the buckshot lariat, sells it huge, and then Wardlow's on the outside to drape his foot over the ropes, and the referee can only count 2. That's not even Wardlow's biggest contribution to the match. At one point, MJF distracts the referee, and behind his back, Wardlow knocks out Hangman Page with a big right hand, and Hangman's just dead to rights. MJF pulls him in the ring and nails him with, let's call it a unique version of the Crossroads. It was sloppy, it was a bad version of the Crossroads. On commentary they seem to be calling it the double cross, and to be honest, the fact that it was sloppy kind of works, because it's not MJF's move, he's deliberately stealing it from Cody. Why should he be a master of it? Even though it was a bit of a semi-botch, in a really strange way, I didn't mind it too much. DDP comes out to a big pop to present the diamond ring to the winner. He gets on the mic and he says, look MJF, a lot of your actions have really disappointed me recently, but you are the man tonight, you won the match, and as the bigger man, I'm going to congratulate you. He offers MJF a handshake. Oh, MJF gets the ring, puts it on his pinky, but Diamond Dallas Page is like, right MJF, here's a handshake, mate, and MJF goes, all right, takes out his gum and puts it in DDP's hand. Disrespectful. The disrespect shown by MJF. I was aghast watching this. What a heel. DDP is obviously not happy. He gets in MJF's face, so Wardlow takes over. And DDP has a great babyface line, to be fair. He says, look Wardlow, I'd step away if I were you. You don't want to look foolish when a 63-year-old man kicks your ass all over the streets of Chicago. That gets a big cheer. They're about to fight. They throw a few punches at each other, but security and referees and stuff come out and they all break it up. This gets a B grade. The match wasn't spectacular by any means, but it was just really classic babyface versus heel stuff, with Wardlow getting involved from the outside. And I thought DDP in the post-match segment was excellent actually, and maybe the reason that I've bumped this up to a B grade. He was good on the mic, he got the crowd behind him, and he helped put MJF over as just a nasty man. Next up, Dustin Rhodes comes out for an interview in the ring and says he's out for Jake Hager's blood because he broke his arm in the car door and now he wants revenge. Dustin doesn't get a chance to cut much of a promo though before Santana, Ortiz and Sammy Guevara all attack him in the ring. The interviewer gets out of the way, she wasn't much help at all, but fair play to her for getting out of dodge. But it's okay because Dustin is immediately saved by the Young Bucks, who run out, help him turn the tide, and they all hit a triple Shattered Dreams on each of the heels in a corner. Lovely stuff. Big pop from the crowd for that. Everyone loves a kick in the balls. This gets a B grade, yeah, fair enough. It was a nice palate cleanser of a moment just to refresh everybody before the main event. It felt like a little bit of a filler segment, but I guess technically it's not a filler segment if it helps lead to Dustin versus Hager. Next up, the penultimate segment of the night, another video package from the Dark Order. Previously we saw like a recruitment video type of thing. This one was more like what their meetings are like. So a guy sees an advert for the Dark Order and goes to their weird, like, grotty clubhouse. He's sitting there and listens to like Evil Uno do a sermon and basically says, you join the Dark Order, you'll be strong and you become a lawyer or a teacher or anything you want to be. But it's all obviously got a very, very sinister undertone. You can't actually see Uno's face, but he's not wearing his mask, but the camera like cuts off his features, so you can't actually see him. But Stu Grayson's there as well, and everyone in the crowd sitting listening, and the guy who the video is focused on looks a little bit scared, to be honest. I would be as well. Uno ends it by saying, will you join us? Suddenly, bang, he's wearing his mask. Every other member of the little sermon's wearing a mask as well, and they all turn and stare at the one guy who looks petrified, but also tempted to join the Dark Order. Are you? This gets a B+. I think these are good. I felt really bad for the Dark Order throughout AEW so far because they put on good matches, but no one seems to get behind them. And this is the remedy, I think. Give them a bit more of a character, give them a bit more of a direction, and let's see where it goes. Although with the Blade and the Butcher on the scene, now we've got another dark tag team. Oh, maybe we'll get a big clash between all of them. Maybe they'll join forces and we'll get like a new ministry. Maybe they should be kept apart for a little bit as well, though. And finally, the main event of the night, the AEW Championship match between Chris Jericho and the challenger Scorpio Sky of SCU. This was a good match and I enjoyed it, but I felt like it never really hit that higher gear that we all hoped it would. Maybe we've just been spoiled recently after some excellent wrestling with the likes of, TakeOver and some of those matches at Survivor Series as well, like Adam Cole versus Pete Dunne. Maybe this was a good match, but right now it's been a very good time of the year for good matches. However, I do think this match was maybe kind of structured a little bit wrong. I thought that Scorpio Sky should have just flown out the blocks and just gone at Chris Jericho with loads of babyface fire to get the crowd right behind him, because the crowd seemed a little bit sapped of energy here. Maybe it's because there's been loads of wrestling in Chicago recently, but Sky did actually get beaten up for a lot of the first half of the match, and I'm not sure if that was the right call. He did manage to break the control of Jericho about midway through, and that's when Jake Hager came out to make a nuisance of himself. Scorpio knocked him off the apron, but Hager stuck around and kept basically making things difficult for Sky until finally Kazarian and Daniels came down and took care of Hager, brawling with him on the ramp all the way up to the back. And this is where the match really started to pick up. Jericho went for a belt shot with the referee distracted, but Sky ducked, hit him with the TKO, and everyone was like, oh my god, he's going to win. 1, 2, great near fall, to be fair. Later on as well, Jericho went for the Judas Effect back elbow, but Sky countered into a backslide. 1, 2, another really good near fall. So the second half of the match was easily a lot better than the first. Eventually though, Jericho was able to catch Scorpio in the walls, and that's enough to pick up the submission victory and retain the AEW Championship. But the show was not quite over yet. That's right, after the match, Jon Moxley's music hit. He came down from the crowd and stared down Jericho, who was still celebrating in the ring. And it looks like they're building towards Moxley versus Jericho, and I think Moxley could well be the man to take that title from old Chrissy J. But who knows? I guess we'll find out in the near future. This final match and little post-match segment gets a B+ from me. I thought that it was good, but again, it never really quite hit the heights that it deserved and that we all hoped that it would. I've really enjoyed Scorpio Sky's recent rise to contender status, but now I feel like it may have gone down a little bit more underwhelmingly than we all expected it to. Still a good showing from both men, but again, I would have also liked to see Moxley get in the ring and maybe attack Jericho to just end the show on that exclamation point. Instead, he quite uncharacteristically stayed in the crowd and just stared him down from afar. So yeah, this gets a B+. I thought that it was good, but certain little things didn't quite work for me. In fact, that's the theme of the show for me, to be honest. It could have been really good, but certain things didn't quite work out, which is why the overall grade this week for Dynamite is a B. That's probably the weakest Dynamite so far, and it wasn't a bad show by any stretch of the imagination, but just not as good as how good Dynamite's been for the first few weeks of its run. A little bit disappointing, but we'll see if it was just a blip and they can pick things up next week. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.